Good evening again, everybody, and welcome back to the Warren Files. Tonight we have a special co-host, Francis McNeil. Francis, why don't you go ahead and say hi to everyone if you
Hi,
would?
everyone. Good to be back.
Yeah, it's been a while since you've been on here.
It has been.
It has been, but it's good to have you back. I apologize too to everybody. My voice, I don't know if you can hear it, but it's a little froggy today. But we definitely wanted to have this guy on tonight. I didn't want to postpone it. I didn't want to cancel. Um, we were talking before the show, and this has like been the freshest thing that I've seen about paranormal on TV in a long time. Um, a very very cool experiment that they did, and it's like I said, I think the last thing that I really got excited about was Sir No Face, and then this finally, and that was a long time ago. I remember watching that. I think maybe during COVID at the beginning. But have you seen that?
No, I have
Oh,
not
okay.
seen
You
it.
got to check that out. That's a pretty good documentary too. But so yeah, this documentary is called Parasense: The Naked Experiment, and I will let Ross talk about it more. But like I said, it's the freshest thing I've seen since Sir No Face. So, Ross, let's bring him on and we'll have a chat with him. Hey, Ross, how you doing?
Doing pretty good. How you doing?
Good, good. So, I think we should probably start right with it. So, what is Parasense and where can people watch it?
Well, Parasense is a documentary I've been working on for over 6 years. Research started over 6 years ago. And it basically started when a young man over in Northport, Washington, had contacted me and told me about an experience that he had while he was doing some work in an old brothel. He was hanging some sheetrock and stuff when he was alone and he felt something grope him. Now, this is not the first time I've heard, somebody having those personal interactions with something unseen. But to me, it was just a little frustrating because you hear these stories, people being touched by ghosts in various different ways, and you just have to take people's word for it. And it really got me thinking, it's like, well, how do you prove such a personal experience? And I started doing research to see, if there had ever been some experiments done in the past in trying to prove touch. And to my surprise, no one had ever done it. And so I found myself in a situation starting from scratch, trying to come up with different experiments and trying to validate these encounters that people are claiming to have. And it just kind of took off from there. So, I ended up teaming up with a scientist, and we put a lot of our experiments together and produced Parasense. And this is kind of what we consider our origin story. The research continues on. I'm still out there investigating, continuing to do these experiments, but it's really started to kick off, and people are really enjoying it. As you said, we are doing a fresh outtake in the paranormal. We're really trying to show that you don't have to be afraid of the science. We're trying to show people that we need more. We need to challenge ourselves more as paranormal investigators to try and validate our experiences and our evidence. So I just put it out there, hoping that people like yourselves would enjoy it and be willing to talk about it and learn from it. So Parasense is out there now. It's on a lot of the major streamings, such as Amazon Prime, Apple TV, Google TV, YouTube. It's on Tubi, Roku. So, and it just was released not too long ago in the UK as well.
Yeah,
And it's
and
won a couple of awards, just so you know.
good deal. And it sounds like too, it almost didn't make TV. Can you talk about that, or would you rather not
Oh,
go into
sure.
that?
Yeah, yeah. No, we had actually signed with a major network just before COVID had happened. They really liked it. We were actually working with a few different networks. They were actually playing tug of war with it. And one network, really wanted to not just focus on just ghosts. They wanted to consider aliens and Bigfoot and stuff like that. And I was just like, I don't want to go down that road, especially when they brought up the fact that they wanted to talk about cases where people were being raped by ghosts. And for me, that was taking it a step a little too far, because I did not want to put somebody who was going through that traumatic experience, because what they don't understand is if somebody is being physically attacked in that way, whether you believe in that phenomenon or not, um, you have to use them as the subject, because obviously they're the target. And now you're asking me to put somebody in a situation where they're being physically attacked by a ghost, and now I have to make them the subject if I'm trying to get the results I need to validate these experiences. And now I need to ask you, oh, would you mind getting naked and putting yourself out there again? And to me, I just was not willing to cross that line.
Yeah, that
So
seems
that
cool.
kind of put it into one of the networks, and then we basically the contracts were being written up, and COVID had hit, and they had shut down everything, and it was kind of a blessing too, because if we had signed the contracts and were ready to go to start shooting, NBC ended up pulling all funding for all their sister networks during COVID, and so we would have been canceled even before we had the chance to air. So being that we did not go completely through the full process, I still owned Parasense. And so now I was able to produce it for myself.
And that would have been bad because they would have owned it and then canceled it, and then you couldn't do it. So
I couldn't do it.
Really bad.
Yeah,
Yep.
They would have owned the rights to it.
Francis,
so people, for those who are excited, to sign a network, sign on for a television series, you got to be careful, because it can really bite you in the butt.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Francis, you got any questions?
Well, we were talking a little bit before the show. I wanted Ross to go into some of the scenes on what we had watched. We were talking about the D block just now, and that's the one that kind of stuck in my mind. So if you can talk about it, I think it'd be really cool for our viewers to get a sense of what they'll be watching.
And this is in Brushy Mountain, right?
No, Brushy Mountain Prison. Mm-hmm. Well, I guess I should explain a little bit more, because a lot of people always ask, why the nudity? And the thing is, if you're trying to prove touch, you need to see what's happening to the physical body, to the skin, the muscles. Is there temperature variance? And also, too, by exposing yourself in that way, you're opening yourself up to opportunities of possible more touch. There could have been lots of times when you were out there investigating and something touched you and you didn't feel it. Now we're opening that up. And then, of course, when you are wearing clothes and you do feel touched, it becomes contaminated evidence. Because once, a scientist or a skeptic is going to realize, oh, you're wearing a shirt when you claimed you were tapped on the shoulder, who's to say it wasn't your shirt? Who's to say it wasn't your jacket? So you can't validate that experience when you're wearing clothing. So nudity just made sense, and it's nothing different than you would actually see on, Naked and Afraid.
Right.
So it was a situation where we just wanted to make sure that we were doing the research properly, collecting the right data to validate these experiences. And so having somebody naked in an environment, they're alone, completely alone, and then having, an experiment running, equipment running to hopefully correlate any type of, readings at the same time they're being touched. So that just all, came together as we were producing Parasense. So as we were talking about D Block, D Block at Brushy Mountain Prison is a place where the worst of the worst was held. And the first time I went there, and this is at the very beginning of doing a lot of these experiments that I was producing, I had Nick, one of my subjects, a young man who actually was willing to be alone in this environment. And we did an experiment called The Bitch is what it's called. But it's a situation where we made him put himself out there as a submissive young man who would, be willing to do whatever he needed to do for the protection of the other inmates, as you would find in prison life. in that situation. If, it's fight or die type of situation in that prison. And so some men would make themselves available for whatever they needed to survive. And so that was the experiment that we had him doing. And something happened. He saw something and it freaked him out so much that he ran out of that prison screaming for me and for his brother. And so years later, we go back now that we're, producing the documentary and trying to see what, could happen with all the new technology. And I wanted to see what would happen if Nick went back to that situation. Now, he was terrified to go back. I had to do a lot of convincing to have him do that experiment one more time. And we didn't get the same results, but I feel we didn't get the same results because in the first experiment, and we were talking about this, is I realized he was being very submissive, being very flirtatious, doing what he needed to do to coax whatever was there to come out and touch him. The second time, he was afraid. He had already had that experience, so he was holding back. He did not want to open himself up that way because I think he was afraid that he would see or experience more than what he had the first time. So I would love to go back and try that experiment again and hopefully get him to the point where he can be a little more open and reenact that situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like Andrea says, I'll put it up here, sorry. The variables changed, so his emotion blocked the same response.
I agree.
I agree. Very, very guarded. So, yep. Can you explain? So the equipment that you use is called the Spectre system, correct?
Yes.
And you guys invented that. Is his name Chad?
Chad Goodwin, yes.
Yeah.
It's a system that I had put together. I've been using for over 20 years. Just basic science testing equipment, and he basically turned it, advanced it, and turned it into a 360 setup. So for the first time in history, we are able to track phenomena. Mm-hmm. So with this system, we can actually see through the ones and zeros what is actually happening around the subject, where what I was using was just one directional. Mm-hmm. So that was a really a huge I want to say emotional experience for me, because here I am getting the results that I finally needed after doing these experiments for over 6 years now. When Chad jumped in and was able to advance the equipment, and we could see what was happening. A prime example of this is, and I don't want to give out too much because I want people to see the documentary. But
I definitely want people to watch. Yep.
Yeah, there are a couple situations where the subjects were attacked by something. And we were able to, because of the Spectre system, we were able to see something come towards them and then leave. Mm-hmm. And it was interesting because Lloyd Auerbach, a good friend of mine, also is in the documentary. And, we talked to him about, when people claim to have these physical encounters with a ghost, and, how there is a big belief that sometimes we target ourselves. We are sending out this energy and it comes back and it hits us. So it really doesn't make it an entity of its own. It's just a psychic attack on ourselves that we are unaware of. Is one strong belief in those situations where people are physically attacked by something they can't see. It could be from ourselves in that situation. But with this information that we collected, the data that we collected, we are actually able to prove that something comes out of nowhere, hits the subject, and then leaves.
Right.
If it was psychic, projection, then that would be coming from ourselves and then coming back.
Yeah.
And
that you would get happen. The data points. You would get the data points twice. The leaving and then the coming back. So yeah.
Right.
Is Stephanie wants to know, is there anything like that that paranormal investigators can buy and use? Or is this
Not right now.
proprietary setup?
It's from what we got set up right now. It's not user friendly. We are talking about trying to produce something that would be more user friendly for those out there, because I want that data. I want people out there to have the ability to collect this data, because one of the things that we've also learned through Parasense is the equipment that ghost hunters are dependent on is not sensitive enough or not even quick enough
Right.
to pick up a lot of the phenomena we were able to pick up with Parasense.
Mm-hmm.
So that right there is limiting us as paranormal investigators. We are probably missing out on so much information that we could be collecting. And so this is something that I do feel that it needs to be out there so that we can advance ourselves in this field.
Yeah, we had Lloyd Auerbach on a couple weeks ago, and he brings up the same point. We need to get more science back into the paranormal than things that light up over EMF, which, okay, cool, they light up over cell phones and walkie talkies too. So what I mean, it's in us that the apps really bother me too, these cell phone apps.
Don't get me started on that one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the challenge that we face. And my biggest fear when I was getting ready to publish Parasense was those people that watch a lot of the ghost hunting shows, they're accustomed to these cookie cutter shows. It's all the same thing, same reactions, same places, just different teams, and a lot of it is dramatized and a lot of it is faked, let's be honest, to entertain the audience. And I was afraid that when we did Parasense, that when we got it out there, that the audience would be too far gone, that they wouldn't want this type of investigation. They want to see the drama. They want to see, the ghosts attacking every, 5 seconds or every, 5 minutes, I should say, or somebody getting possessed and ripping off their shirt, saying, "Can you see my scratches?" I won't name who, but but it's a lot of that is out there that most audiences are aware of. And as you said, this is something new, something different. Can it still draw an audience?
Yeah. Well, I think it does.
I think it could. I heard someone, and I can't remember who it was now, say that we've had a dumbing down of our field.
Right.
And I think that it's necessary for something like this to come into it and open everybody's mind, right? There is science behind this. And once they start to understand the science, I feel like we'll really bring a lot of new people into this because, right, we understand the phones, we understand all of the gadgets, and the science-minded folks recognize that, well, I don't know about that. So I think what you're doing is fantastic. I think people are going to love it. I really do. We lost Jeff. Where'd Jeff go?
Did we lose him completely?
Oh, there he is.
No, I'm hitting the cough button.
Oh, the cough button. I was wondering about that.
Yeah. So, yep. No, we do have a question in the audience, and anybody that's watching, feel free to ask some questions up here. I know the answer to this, but I'm going to let you answer this one, Ross. It's Jen wants to know, is there going to be a follow-up to the documentary?
Yes. We've already started filming it. I'd say we're about halfway there. And one of the things is, as doing this documentary, we want to do it right. We don't want to be, when you're under a network contract, you're under the pressure of producing a show every, so often. And then you're under the pressure of, well, then I guess I have to have results every so often. People don't understand that when they realize, when it comes to a lot of these television shows that they watch, that they always have to keep it entertaining. So for me, for those of you that are really into the science and understand the real concept of a true paranormal investigation, that you don't always get results every time you go out. So it's one of those, hit and miss situations. And, And so I did not want to be under the pressure of making sure the next documentary, it's always, it's got to, maintain this, level of suspense and, thrills that a lot of the shows do. We just want to get it out when we feel we have the right data to back up our findings.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the challenge within itself,
Because the TV shows, with the amount of money that they put into it in the locations, it better freaking be haunted.
Exactly.
And you better have at least 5 things that you can show us on TV. So
exactly.
we don't care how you get them, but you better have them.
Well, one of the things that they miss out when it comes to trying to validate your experiences is the 3 data points. And what that means is, when you have one experience, try to have other points of data to validate that one experience. Is it, if I felt touched, did an EMF reading happen at the same time? Did we capture an EVP at the same time? Were there other readings happening at the exact same time when you're having that one experience?
Mm-hmm.
Most shows don't validate those experiences. It's just that one EMF reading and, oh, that's a ghost.
Yeah.
And as we know, there's, so many false readings out there. It's easy to take one blimp on an EMF detector and say, oh, that was definitely a ghost.
Yeah.
We need more than that. And that's where we fail the community. We fail the observers.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why people in the scientific field and skeptics can laugh at us, because we fail ourselves, because we're not challenging ourselves enough to try and validate these experiences. And that's what we try to do with Parasense.
Yeah. And I don't know if you can reveal this, because like you said, it is your software that you guys created. What data points do you collect when you do this?
Well, we're checking for light, we're checking for a barometer, we're checking for EMF, we're also checking for motion, we're checking for there's a few other ones. I'm sorry, I wish Chad was here to validate all this stuff, because he's added a few other things to it as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, we just take all these different sensors and we run them in 4 different directions. And so we're getting a full 360 of what's happening around the subject.
Right. And you guys have integrated that aura reading.
Oh yeah, that was another new thing. Yeah. Never been done before in the paranormal field. People only used it to read an individual's aura or energy around them. And I just got to thinking, and that's one of the things, is how do you make the invisible world visible? Mm-hmm. That's one of our biggest challenges. Yeah. And so I got to thinking about that technology, being that it shows your aura. But what is happening if a subject was actually using that technology and something approached them? Would they be affected in any way? Would we be able to see something? Yeah. And to our surprise, we saw something.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, and if you guys want to see what they saw, go ahead and check out the film, because it's the visual things are often the most spectacular, because you can see what's happening when it's happening. It's it's pretty fantastic, and I'll leave it at that, because I do want to direct people to watch this. I don't want to give it away. So, Francis, did you have any other questions?
I was just going to ask how, Ross, how did you connect with Chad? How did you two get together?
Actually, he connected with me, surprisingly. Okay. He ran a science talk show on the radio, and they were doing a Halloween season, and they thought, oh, we'll talk about, fear and other subjects. And so he reached out to me asking if I would, come out and, talk on his show. And we just, hit it off, and we started talking about, some of the ideas that I had. And, being that he was in the scientific field and built a lot of the equipment, I was trying, to reel him in to say, hey, I got these great ideas. Can you help me, build this? And unfortunately, he does tend to be a very busy person. So we were never able to cross paths again. I think I did a couple shows for him, and then we kind of lost touch. And as I was developing my own experiments, I realized, for my own, skepticism and challenging myself, I wasn't getting the results I needed, or I should say the data I needed. Yes, a lot of my experiments had some interesting results, but it was not the information that I felt that the public would be able to say, wow, this is amazing. So I reached out to him just to see what ideas he would have. It was no, intention of, trying to reel him in and, be a member of my team. It was just, I needed some ideas because again, no one's done this before. So being the first, I was, trying to figure out what I could be doing to help advance myself in this research. So I, spoke to him because I knew he was in the science field. And so I brought it up to him and he was fascinated with this research. And so I said, well, I'm going to be doing another investigation out at Northport with that young man that started this all. And I invited him. I said, just observe, just watch us do this and see if you can get some ideas. And he watched as all this unfolded. So he knew we weren't, pulling his leg or, trying to, as they say, keep him from the guy behind the curtain type of situation. I was being as transparent as possible, showing him the spectra system that I was using. And then, of course, we also had, Shanna there to show also the aura technology. And because this is the first time we were able to use that.
Right.
And he watched all this unfold and he was fascinated by it, that he actually was willing to be a subject. And I was just like, whoa, really? This is
The
amazing.
scientist becomes part of the experiment.
Yeah,
That was pretty cool.
And that was pretty cool because, he says he needed to know what they were experiencing.
Yep.
That would help him direct the technology and the research if he knew exactly what it was that they felt. So sure enough, he got naked. He sat in front of the aura photography, and he had his own experiences as well.
Yeah, we got another question from the audience here. Jen wants to know, what do you look for in a location when you run these experiments? I know places such as Brushy Mountain, but is there a specific criteria that makes certain locations better than others for your experiment?
Well, there has to be physical contact. I can't do these experiments if people are only hearing sounds and only, seeing images. I need to make sure that we have the opportunity of touch. Now, granted, when we do our experiments, we experience other things besides just touch. People will hear things, people will see things. And so, that's great. Those become other points of data. But if we can at least strive for touch and get that entity to come into that personal space of our subjects and the equipment can read them, then that gives us what we're looking for. So touch is a big thing for us when we seek out an investigation location.
Because in the film there is lots of other evidence that you collect that
Right.
A lot of shows collect. There's EVPs, there's things that light up. There's, I mean, the one girl that bang was so loud she heard it through the noise canceling headphones.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, there was definite stuff going on at these places other than just your experiment. So that's also cool too, because it validates as well that it, like you said, the more you can get, the better off.
It is.
Yeah.
And it helps validate other investigators who are out there, doing the same thing. When we can, show, one of the things that we have to be for ourselves as paranormal investigators is we have to be transparent as possible. We have to be willing to show every piece of information to show that we are being open and honest with you as an audience. And one of the things that, frustrates me is we have far too many, I don't know, I hate to use the word charlatans, but there are those who will make up stories for the attention or for their own 15 minutes of fame to be on a show. And if we have so many of those individuals making up stories about a location, about their, own personal experiences, then as paranormal investigators, all it does is just have us chasing, dead end roads. You know, we need the true raw data to help us understand what is occurring, to have us have a better understanding of what it is. What is a ghost? We don't know.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. There's, you know, we're lacking in the data that we need to validate a lot of these encounters. A lot of these are our own prejudice and our own, you know, teachings that we apply to our ideas of what a ghost is.
Yep.
But when you're trying to pursue this on a scientific level, you have to strip all of that away and just go with what we know and not with what we think we know.
Right.
And that's where the ones and zeros become so much more important.
Yeah. Yep. Andrea wants to know, is this new device easily portable? How long does it take to set up for an experiment?
It is portable. It usually takes Chad, I would say, about a half hour to set up. And that's getting everything synced, you know, getting baselines. Baselines are so important if you're trying to be scientific in your approach. So he has to make sure he has all that information before he starts an experiment.
Yep. Another question from the viewers. Tammy wants to know, she's got a question about video frame speed. Have you experienced anything and been able to slow it down and see what was almost missed by the naked eye? So have you ever done any video?
We haven't. It is on my list of getting some more technology, especially when it comes to anything visually. I do have a few experiments and ideas that we want to move forward with. But again, it becomes costly, and all this does come out of our own pockets. I would believe, you know, it'd be nice to be able to have the technology to be able to record at the fastest frames as possible, just so that you can see, you know, if there is some things that we do miss, because in some cases, like I said, a lot of the technology that we're using isn't fast enough or even sensitive enough to pick up a lot of the information that we've been able to collect.
Right.
So, and that could apply to videography as well.
Francis, you got any?
I do. I want everyone to go watch this first and foremost.
Yeah. Yep.
Me too.
Yeah.
It's going to be one of the most interesting things that you've seen in a long, long time, and open your mind up just a little bit to some other things. But as a science-based investigator, what piece of advice would you give to new investigators coming on board that maybe has had their minds a little bit clouded by you know, the current state of affairs?
Right. Oh, that's a long one. That could be a show of its own, believe me.
Yeah.
Because we're dealing with a situation where the audience is getting their education from the television shows, and and a lot of these television shows and a lot of these investigation teams that are out there today are becoming what I like to call lazy ghost hunters. They're dependent on the instant gratification. You know, they don't want to go back and watch, you know, 12 hours of video or listen to 12 hours of audio. They want to rely on devices that's going to give them an instant success, you know, and in most cases, those devices are very suggestive. And so that alone does not prove the paranormal. So it's a situation where, you know, if I'm telling people that if you're going to step into this field for the first time, or if you want to do it correctly, and I hate to say that because I know so many people are misguided in this field. As I've always said, you know, people tend to call themselves experts because they've seen every episode of Ghost Hunters. And that's like me saying I'm a surgeon because I've seen every episode of Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah.
You know, there's so much more to the field than what we're seeing and what the shows are allowing the audience to see. So I always tell people, if you're stepping into this field for the first time, because you're inspired by the television shows, and that's fine. You know, I wish I had these television shows when I was into, you know, the paranormal. But you kind of have to put that all aside. I tell them, you got to remember the shows are for entertainment purposes. They're mainly there to entertain you. All right. There's hardly any science involved in a lot of these shows that are out there. So you really do have to step back and go with the basics. As I said, go with what you know and not with what you think you know. Some of the things that are very important in this field is going to be video. Get yourself a good camera. Get yourself a good audio recorder. Video and audio are going to be your two key elements right now in trying to capture some of the phenomena. EVP is one of the things that we still cannot explain. And I'm not talking ghost box EVPs, as a lot of people like to refer to those as EVPs. Those are not EVPs. That is actually the correct term for those is RVP, radio voice phenomena. That goes back to the days when that phenomena was a big thing before we were reliant on ghost boxes or spirit boxes or whatever they, call them nowadays. There's so many different terms for them now. But the actual term when a spirit was speaking through a dead radio signal was actually RVP, radio voice phenomena. So I'm talking about the true EVPs, where you're in there alone in a room, you have a controlled environment, and you're asking questions into the air, and you play back your recording, and you clearly hear a voice talking back. That is a phenomena we cannot explain. And that is something that I hold true to my heart, is there's something there. When you ask a name, what is your name? And you get a response, Edward, you know that there's something to it, especially when you're in control of the environment.
Yep.
So some things like that are some of the things that we need to go back to and try to focus our attention on trying to validate those experiences.
Mm-hmm. And
go ahead.
You even started this one with fishing line. Wasn't that your first method of trying to prove touch? Was that
no, not fishing line? You're talking about the puppet experiment.
Yeah.
Okay, so the puppet is one of my favorite experiments that I came up with, and this is something people can try on their own.
Exactly.
Just give me credit. That's all I ask is just give me credit for it. But the puppet is where I thought, if I could extend the nervous system to the complete room, to the whole room, what would happen? What would happen if you could take out your nerves and stretch them out to the other end of the wall? And that's what gave me the idea of basically using elastic string and attaching it to the sensitive parts of the body, from the wrists, the back of the neck, there were even the nipples, and you have those goes in that elastic string is stretched out to other parts of the room. And so if somebody, or something, passes through that string, is there going to be a pull? Is there going to be a vibration? What would they experience? And that actually led to some amazing results that we are actually looking to advance in the next documentary. See, our goal is to take, while working with Chad, is to take my basic concept of an experiment, and then Chad's challenge is, okay, how can I get data out of that experiment?
Yeah.
And so that is our goal with each documentary that we produce. So since we kind of teased a little bit with the puppet in the first one, we actually want to go into more detail of the puppet with the next one, and what can we do to validate those types of experiences, because a lot of people, even Chad tried that one, people were feeling that sensation, something vibrating, something tugging on the string.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's just like, wow, that's great. Now, again, that's a personal experience. How do you prove that? And that's part of our challenge as we move forward.
Yeah, it's how do we get that into numbers, on a computer screen. So
exactly.
This kind of tied into what Francis asked you a couple minutes ago, that if you had zero budget concerns, any amount of manpower that you wanted, access to any equipment that you could ever dream of, what would your dream experiment be?
Again, my goal as I've said earlier, is to make the invisible world visible. That would help us tremendously if we could actually see a ghost, not with our naked eyes, but through technology.
Mhm.
If we could prove that there is actually a figure standing there, and I'm not talking about, the SLS cameras or anything like that. Those have their own issues, which
Yeah.
again could be another show.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if we know, like I always thought, since we have the access of seeing thermal,
Mhm.
why can't we see EMF? Is there something to EMF? If we could see EMF, would that produce an image of somebody? That's something that I was always very curious about. And so that would be something that I would love to bring to the table to see
Yeah.
where we could take that information.
Yeah, because a lot of the equipment that people buy at like the Ghost Stop and places like that is EMF based. I mean, it all reads, or a lot of it detects EMF and lights up, and there's a ghost.
Right.
I mean, in theory,
But again, you don't know what's setting it off. But
right?
if you could see
Exactly.
what it is that's setting it off, that would answer a lot of our questions,
Right.
because we can't assume that EMF is the key to the paranormal.
Right. Yep.
That's the thing. That those are some of the simple mistakes we make as paranormal investigators because of the excitement. Oh, the EMF detector's going off.
Yeah.
It's got to be a ghost.
Yep.
I get it. I was there in the very beginning myself, but then I started challenging myself. I started to realize, okay, how can I prove that EMF reading is a ghost?
Yeah.
And that's, again, takes us to, we have to be willing to challenge ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. Andrea's got a comment that's relevant. Maybe you can add to this. So she thinks that EMF is on a specific light wave. That's just a theory. Do you have any thoughts on that theory?
I would have to do more research. I don't know exactly how it would work, especially when it comes with thermal imaging. How exactly thermal imaging is able to pick up that image and give you the exact temperature. So we need to, because again, I'm not the scientist.
Yeah.
It's the situations like, can you reproduce that but alter what it's trying to pick up? Instead of thermal imaging, can you get it to pick up EMF?
Yeah.
So that's something that of course we would need somebody in that particular field to give us the as I always say, the ones and zeros to help us understand what it is that we're trying to read.
Yeah. Have you ever run into the block of like a lot of scientists that I have talked to about the paranormal think it doesn't exist, it's all BS, and I mean, there's a lot of scientists that really won't even get involved in paranormal conversations or experiments, or I mean, have you ever
Well,
ran into that particular roadblock?
oh
I've
yeah,
argued with,
and we've even had to deal with it with Chad,
yeah,
as the documentary has gotten out there more, because he's a real scientist. He doesn't play
yeah,
one on TV.
yep,
You
yep,
can look him up, all of his credentials. He just did a big thing out in Africa. So, he's got all these big projects, so he can validate who he is and what he
right,
does.
yep,
But when the documentary first came out, he was concerned about, how does it affect his credibility? But then he got to thinking, he realized, if I'm doing it in the right way,
yeah,
then all it does is any evidence that I have collected and present that to my fellow colleagues in the field, then that should at least get them thinking that,
yeah,
maybe there is something to this. That's the problem we've had, is no one's ever taken it to that level.
right,
Those who are in the field have been, afraid to, because they are afraid of the criticism that could follow in that situation. Because, unfortunately, there's been far too many charlatans out there, taking advantage of the paranormal field and taking advantage of people's grief of losing loved ones. And now, we have far too many bad shows doing the exact same thing.
mhm,
So rightfully so, anybody who's a skeptic or in the scientific field can easily point their finger and laugh at us.
yeah,
we just got to make sure that, if we're going to be doing this, that we're doing it right, and that we are being transparent. I hate to repeat that, but
Yep.
hopefully that'll sink into people's heads and realize, if I want to be taken serious as a paranormal investigator, these are the steps I need to take.
Yeah. And it does come to a point where you have to, like, assume that the people that are like you, I have to assume that you are operating with integrity. You know what I mean? Because anybody can fake anything on video. That's just
Right.
a reality. So you
A
definitely have
3-year-old
not
kid
given me.
could put a ghost in a video,
Yeah. Yep.
That's how
Yep.
easy the technology is today.
Yep. Yeah.
It's so easy to manipulate the audience,
Yep. And you can do it
and
with your phone.
manipulate the ghost hunters as well.
Yep. Yep.
We are targets as well.
Yep. And Francis, I mean, I know you've witnessed this, within the foundation, is how many paranormal investigators have been on cases that we get before us and just
Right.
totally blown up the case. I mean, they put these people in such a state of fear that,
Oh yeah.
and it's once they're in that state of mind, it is so hard to rein them back in, because they've been told they've got a portal. You know what I mean? Like, it's
Or it's a demon, and
yeah.
that
Oh yeah.
they're about ready to pack and move out, put themselves in financial stress because they're convinced that it's a demon in their home.
Yep.
And a lot of the cases, it's not that at all.
Yeah.
I've been in that situation myself, where a group had gone out and investigated a case and had the family convinced that this is a demon that was gonna possibly kill them.
Yep.
And of course they did nothing to help them.
Yeah.
After making that claim,
Yep.
and then just packed up their stuff and left. And now they're calling on me and my team to get rid of this demon in
Yeah.
their home. And I'm just like, wait, what gives you the idea that it's a demon? Well, this other team told us it's a demon.
Yep.
And again, you kind of have to walk them off the cliff and talk them back. And I always remind our clients, it's just like, we have to have a better understanding of what the environment is before we can even label what it could possibly be.
Yep.
And I know a lot of the television shows are hyping on demons right now because of the excitement and drama that it causes.
Yeah.
And I would say I've probably done well over 600 cases.
Mm-hmm.
And I probably have only come across maybe a handful that would probably be considered something negative.
Yeah.
I don't like to use the term demon, because if you're trying to be scientific in your approach, you can't be biased.
Yeah.
And a religious belief is unfortunately being biased in some way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that negative energies aren't out there. They are.
Yeah.
There's some energies out there that possibly could harm individuals. What is it? I'm not sure.
Right.
I want to collect the data, help validate those experiences.
Yeah, and there's a lot of guys out there running around saying, "Oh, I do about 75 or 80 exorcisms per year." It's like, no, you don't. Like,
the church doesn't even do that many.
Exactly. Like, I promise you do not.
And that's what gets me frustrated is people who take these online courses and now are calling themselves demonologists. It's a situation where those, and if you are going to go to the religious beliefs, it's believed that the person who can do an exorcism is a person without sin. That's why clergy is involved in exorcisms, because they believe that if you are a sinner, then you're able, the demon can possess you easily. So in situations like that, I know somebody who calls himself a demonologist, and he brags about sleeping with his best friend's wife behind his back, and it's just like, wow,
Yep. Yep. And you can one of the lectures, I'm doing a class tomorrow. I'm going to be teaching one, and one of the points that I bring up in this is that within I think it was 3 minutes and less than $20, I could be a certified demonologist without doing anything. Like, it's just that easy. And there's so many people running around with those certificates that I don't know, throw them away in my opinion, but
No, and it's unfortunate because again, those are some of the things that make us look foolish.
yes, yep,
You
yep.
know,
And this is a sad state, but I almost think that obviously there's more people that are entertained by that. There's more of them than there are of us because it still happens all the time, and
right,
people love it. I mean,
right,
if you put demon in the title of your YouTube video, it's going to get lots and lots and lots of views. I mean, it's just
right.
because these big YouTubers put it in all the titles because they
Oh
know
yeah,
it's clickbait.
of
Yep.
course, yeah. It's unfortunate. Like I said, you know, and I'm not trying to disrespect those who believe in demonology and anything like that. That's like I said, I choose not to go down that path because I'm trying to be more down the middle of the road. So it's a situation where, yes, I do believe that there are negative entities out there, but then
Right.
there's a lot of negative people. As
Yeah.
I've always said, you know, we've all known an asshole in our life.
Yeah.
Who's to
Yep.
say that that person can't carry those traits on in the afterlife
Yeah.
as well?
Uh-huh.
You know, so you can't just because you got scratched or bitten by something, you can't say, "Oh, that was a demon."
Yeah.
Could be just, you know, somebody who likes to scratch and bite somebody, you know?
Yeah. Yep. For sure. So, Francis, we're going to wrap this up here. We're going to try and be done by 9-ish. Do you have any more questions that
Sure.
you want to ask them? Or
No more. Well, one more. So we know that you're an accomplished author. You have a lot of books out there. Do
Yes,
you have
I
anything
do.
new in the works for us now that we
I
can look
do have
for?
a couple books, and I have to apologize to David Weatherly, my co-author as well. We've done a lot of books, the Haunted series together, and I've been so far behind in my writing, just because with self-producing Parasense, you also have to do your own promoting as well.
Right.
yeah.
So that's kept me busy as well, you know, promoting the documentary and not really working on the books. So there are a couple books. I know with David, our next one for the Haunted series, we were going to do a haunted amusement park. So that is about halfway done. And then, you know, with Chad, we actually wanted to, you know, publish a lot of our findings and put together a book that really helps people to understand more of the science behind doing
Excellent.
an actual investigation. So we are doing one called Parascience. So,
Perfect.
so
Where
that
can
is
people
a couple in the works.
where can
Okay.
people buy these at? Amazon or
Yeah, you can find all
okay.
my books on Amazon.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool. Anything else you want to plug? Yeah, I mean, what's your website? Do you guys have a Facebook page or
Oh,
Instagram or any of that stuff?
you bet. I always encourage people to like me and follow me on Facebook, Ross Allison Ghost Hunter. Um, I always am pretty good at posting, if any social media. That's the one I do tend to keep up on. So I do focus on doing like live investigations from there, from places that I've traveled to all over the world. So that's a great way to follow what I'm up to. Also, if you want to check out the website for Parasense, it's touchedbyaghost.com. You can check that out. And then, of course, you know, do check out the documentary. And if you get a chance, I always encourage people, please post a review.
Okay.
Give it as many stars as you feel it deserves. That does help us out. As it gets higher and higher, more reviews, it'll start getting tagged with other things like it, and help to get it out there a little bit more.
I'll have to watch it a fourth time and actually leave a review then because I have not done that yet. Because that is the bad thing about streaming is like I guess I'm sure they track the people that are viewing it, but like back in the day, if you sold DVDs, that was a mark on how well it was received. But now I
Right.
mean, so many people stream things that like, do you guys even have it available on DVD?
It is on DVD. You can actually get
Okay.
it on like Walmart and Target. You can buy it on DVD. So yes.
Okay. Cool.
Great.
All righty. Well, it was good to have you on. There was so much that I did not get to. Of course, I wanted to, we'll probably have to have you on again sometimes because I did want to hear about your Bel Air house experience at some point
Oh
and your
yes, that's a
your
good one.
Alcatraz experience. Um, so yeah, I mean, we may have to bug you to come on again sometime later in the season.
Anytime, you guys.
Cool. Yeah, it was a good talk, and we appreciate you coming on. And, thank you much, Francis. Anything else or?
Thank you. No, I just like to say that the questions tonight were awesome.
Yep.
So I
Well, I
love
hope
it.
my answers were awesome too.
They were.
Yep.
Love it when the viewers interact because
Awesome.
that's why we do this.
Yep.
Oh, definitely,
Yep.
definitely.
And it's one goal that we want to bring. I guess kind of one theme, I guess, for this season of the Warren Files is we do want to bring it back to more scientific based discussions and talks, because there is way too much of that missing in other things, other shows and other stuff like that. So we do want.
Well,
I mean, we're gonna bring Bigfoot people on too, and we're gonna have Cindy Keza is gonna come on. That's a first time announcement for that. So we are going to get into that stuff too, but I definitely want to focus a lot on the scientific aspect of paranormal research.
well, if you ever want to talk about equipment, let me know.
For sure. We'll have to have one of our managers on. His name is Bill. He goes to all these conventions, and he's probably got 16 tables worth of things that light up. It's fantastic. So,
Awesome.
all righty, I'm going to find I should have been prepared for this, and so again, thanks everybody for watching, and
Thank you.
Join us in 2 weeks. We're going to have George Lunsford on. He is a crypto guy and a Bigfoot guy. So we're going to have him on in 2 weeks. That is the 25th. So we will see you then. Thank you.